Hi, Julie Jones from SSB Performance, Smarter, Stronger, Better Mindset Training, here with this week's Mindset Made Simple Tip of the Week, brought to you by Game Day Sportswear and On Point Pest Control. This week we're talking about performance and Memorial Day. What are we willing to sacrifice to be our best? I hope you had a great weekend. We're wrapping it up here today. And when we think about Memorial Day, I believe that we start to get a better picture of what it really means, unless we have had people in our family that have sacrificed the ultimate sacrifice. As we age, we really understand the deep meaning of things. I was in church yesterday. My cousin Mark played a video about Memorial Day, and it had mothers and sons or daughters and family members in the pictures of people mourning the death of those that gave their lives for us, people they don't even know, to protect our freedoms. And of course, this whole sacrifice conversation is not unusual in a church. But when you think about the normal, everyday human beings, they go and do this for people that they don't know, and then you think about their families that are left behind, it really gives you pause to think about what today really means. My dad's uncle, Alec, my grandma's oldest brother, died in World War I. Yes, World War I. And we were cleaning things out after my grandparents passed away in their house, which is the house my dad grew up in and lives in now. They found a note, or we found a note from President Woodrow Wilson inviting my great-grandmother to France as a Gold Star mother to visit the cemetery where my dad's uncle, Alec, was laid to rest. I really thought about that this summer when I was in France in a cemetery from World War II. And I thought, man, my great-grandma had to take an ocean liner across the world from what she knew, I'm sure, coming from Ohio, to go and see where her young son was laid to rest after he sacrificed everything in that First World War. And I thought of that when I saw this letter, and I thought, that's a really cool letter. And then I thought of it as a parent of a son, and that changes the whole meaning of sacrifice, if you parents know what I mean. But as we think about today and we honor those that have given everything for us, it's a great time for us to start thinking about what we are willing to sacrifice to be our best. Because we know this: freedom is not free. Success is not free. Everything that we do that means something comes with a sacrifice. In fact, everything we do comes with a sacrifice. I heard quite a while ago now the saying that says, when you say yes to something, you say no to something else. And if we think about that in every decision that we make, it's like, wow. And the choices we make either take us closer to where we want to go, or they take us further away from where we want to go. Today, a picnic kind of day, I made some choices that took me closer to the fitness goals that I have, and then I made some choices that took me further away, like the last snickerdoodle I had when I left our friend's house, and I didn't need. But tomorrow I'm starting the no cookies and all that kind of stuff 98-day challenge. So, I'll sneak one in. Is that really what we're looking for? But the bottom line is, what is it we're willing to sacrifice? And there are a lot of things that we are forced to sacrifice, or we choose to sacrifice on the road to success. And maybe for our college coaches, this is something you talk to your athletes about as you send them home and start to prepare for the 24-25 academic year and competition year. But one of the things that we know that we give up, or that we are sacrificing when we are trying to be our best, is time. And maybe a college student doesn't understand the valuable concept of time, our most precious resource in all reality, like some of us do as we get a little bit older. But we were in the kitchen the other day, and I had ordered something off of Amazon. I think it was spark plugs for our lawnmower that isn't running all that well. I thought, well, I'll try to fix it myself before I send it to the person to get repaired. So I ordered spark plugs, and I got 4 of them. And my wife says, we'll never have to order spark plugs again. That just means that we will not outlive these spark plugs. Wow, that puts time in perspective. I heard an author talking about the fact that he had at least 2 more Lucys to live. Lucy was his dog. And so dogs live a certain amount of time normally, right? So I think, oh my gosh, how many more Coles or Roscoes do I have? Well, our dog Cole lived 18 years and our dog Roscoe is 3 years old. So I hope that I have 2 more Coles and at least 2 more Roscoes to go. But time is so precious that we're asked to sacrifice it when we are working towards something that we need. It's so valuable and it's very hard to give up. But we know that if we are going to win a championship, it is going to take time. We only wish our bosses would know that it's going to take more than 3 years and sometimes more than 5. Things always take longer than we need to. But when we are on the road to success, we will give up time away from something else in order to put time in to this. I take 45 minutes almost every day to keep my body in shape. And that time is taken away from something else that I could be doing. And sometimes it's taken away from the time with my child. But I'm hoping that I am sacrificing those 45 minutes for longer years ahead of time, keeping myself physically fit. And that time, that sacrifice, I hope pays dividends in the end. But we know that we are going to be sacrificing time. And the problem is that we get selfish with our time at times. At the end of my career, or after my mom died in particular, I started to really get selfish with my home time, at home time. And I think it changed the way that I performed. Instead of figuring out how to make the time that I was at home more impactful, or make the time that I was at work more impactful, I got selfish with my time. So I spent less time doing certain things at work that probably made a difference, and more time doing things at home, or maybe wasting that time, even not making that as crucially used or constructively used as possible. Mike Smith talks about it in It Takes What It Takes. You Win in the Locker Room First, the book by John Gordon and Mike Smith. He talks about the fact when he was the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, he did certain things. He gave time to walking around the facility, to doing certain things with his players that helped build this amazing culture that helped them win and win and win. And as time went on, he stopped taking the time to do some of those things. And that led him right out the door. So how are we sacrificing our time? But if we're sacrificing our time, are we using it as wisely as possible so that we don't get selfish with it and then think that we need to pull time away from this to give it somewhere else, and maybe we're not doing either all that well? Lots of stuff in there, but we're going to sacrifice time. Another thing that we are going to sacrifice is comfort. We talk a lot about comfort zones with all the athletes and people that I work with. And what I call the comfort zone is that I'm not going to get what I want zone. Because eventually the comfort zone puts us in a place where people are passing us in our own comfort zone. And I don't know about you, but when I'm running a race, I don't like getting passed. I don't like getting passed by people who look fitter than me. I don't like getting passed by kids. I don't like getting passed by men. I don't like getting passed by anybody. And when I do get passed, sometimes I fall in the trap of changing my approach because somebody else is moving ahead of me, instead of me having a plan and getting in better shape so that maybe I wouldn't get passed. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but you get the point. We've got to figure out how to be comfortable pushing ourselves. Our brain doesn't like to be uncomfortable. It wants to protect us. It's like, oh, what we did yesterday was perfect. But this leads us to the point where we have to be thinking about the old Japanese term of kaizen, getting better all the time. Let's see exactly what kaizen, the definition of kaizen is, if I can find it. It's a compound effect. It's another great book, right? Small gradual improvements over time make a huge difference. When we take small gradual improvements, it also keeps our not so comfortable, our uncomfortably fit brain, it moves that along a little bit easier too. So how can we make small improvements so that we don't change our race plan mid-race just because we get passed? We've got to get out of our comfort zone so that we can be our best. We know that we are going to sacrifice comfort. Think about the comfort that the people that are fighting wars for us give up. I mean, geez, Let's put it in that perspective. Another thing that we are going to give up is immediate gratification. If we're going to get where we want to go, we've got to sacrifice a small or a big win now for a bigger win there, or a win now for a bigger win there. You've probably heard of the marshmallow test. This marshmallow test was first conducted by Walter Mischel in the 70s. He gave children, they put a child in a room with a marshmallow, nothing else in the room. And they said, you can either eat the marshmallow now, or you can have another marshmallow when I come back in the room. So if you can wait, I'll give you 2. Well, what they found was the children, they followed them for 40 years. The people who had the discipline or ability to have delayed gratification were more successful in all kinds of realms. They had higher SAT scores. They were more fit, less obesity. They responded to stress better. They had fewer substance abuse problems. Now, obviously, this isn't the only thing. This delayed gratification discipline is not the only thing that set it up. There are cultural differences and all kinds of other variables that went into this environmentally, and even in different studies they did later. But what we know is that if we're going to get where we want to go, we've got to be able to stay on task. We have to be able to not chase the squirrel. One thing that I use a lot, and I learned this, I don't know, a couple months ago, maybe about a year ago now even, that when I want to get up and move from the work that's hard in front of me, when I want to get up to do something different, whether it's empty my email because it's just an easier thing to do, or go get a snack, which is something that distracts me all the time, I say, I'll do it in 10 minutes. I'll do it in 10 minutes. Now, whether I ever do it in 10 minutes is irrelevant, but what that 10 minutes does is it buys me more time to work on the hard stuff, so that I don't make myself feel good for a minute and give up the work that I'm doing that's going to pay dividends down the road. How do we stay on track and make little wins toward the big win, and not just say, oh, this seems easier, I'm going to take this route so I can get immediate gratification, and then whatever happens, happens. We know that people that get where they want to go don't say, whatever happens, happens. That's not how successful people work. They delay gratification, knowing they're going to get 2 marshmallows at the end instead of just 1. I don't even like marshmallows, but when I was 3 years old maybe, and you get what I'm talking about. The other thing that we know we're going to sacrifice is our social life, or time with people, having fun even maybe. Not that work's not fun, or not that competing isn't fun, but we are going to wish that we could go somewhere. I remember driving around recruiting and watching people like do stuff with their kids, and like, oh my gosh, this is what people do on the weekends, as I go and sit at a ball field all day long. But relationships are one of the biggest predictors, or strong relationships are one of the biggest predictors of longevity. So we know that this is something that's important. And we automatically think that we have to have balance in life. And this is where the dissonance comes in. We think that we should be able to give equal time to our social life and equal time to our work or our goals or whatever those things are. And we know that that's not true. I heard an analogy the other day that says that our life is like living in a house with all kinds of different rooms. And at some points in life, we spend a lot of time in the living room. And we very rarely frequent the rec room or the dining room or even the kitchen. You get the point. And then there are times we spend a lot of time in the kitchen and we don't get into the living room very often. And if we can understand in a pursuit of something that really means something to us, that sometimes our life is going to be out of balance and there's a shift in where our focus and our attention needs to be, then we don't get so worked up about the fact that, oh my gosh, I'm not getting to do this. I am sacrificing so much, which then leads to burnout and all these other things. And we can just say, you know what, for now, I'm in the living room a lot. I'll step into all the other rooms to make sure that the house stays in good repair. Just check in. But I can't be there right now. But when I'm out of this room is going to get all my attention. So if we can think about how can we be in one room and be there and get the work done. When we used to go recruiting, I'm like, okay, we are going to spend every hour possible at the field watching kids so that when we go home, we can be home. We're not going to have a sit-down meal. We're not going to go out for drinks. We're not going to stand and talk to people all that long because we want to be focused on our work so that we can be in that room while we're there. And then when we fly home, we get to be in that room. It was a good setup because we're going to sacrifice something. We're going to sacrifice a night out or a relaxing, fun night to be at the ball field so that when we get home, then we can spend the time doing that. It's a give and take. When we say yes to something, we say no to something else. We're always going to sacrifice something. And all these things I'm talking about seem so trivial when we think about what today means. But if we're going to get where we want to go, we have to understand that if we want something, we're not going to be able to get this too. There is no, I'm going to have my cake and eat it too in success. This week, maybe we can ask ourselves some of these questions about our willingness to sacrifice. What do I really want, and what am I really willing to give to get this? I say I want this, but my actions don't show that. And my actions are going to have to be sacrificial in some way if I'm going to make it that far. The next question could be this: am I prepared to give up certain comforts and pleasures to reach my full potential? And maybe I am. And maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm okay with being right here. I'm not willing to give up this time with my family. I'm not willing to give up this time at this time. Maybe I will soon, but not at this time. Maybe after my kids are out of high school, or maybe after my parents don't need me. I don't know. You have to answer your own questions, but these are questions we need to ask, and then we need to come to a peace with ourselves and a reality of what our actions really say that we are willing to sacrifice. And then lastly, how can I balance the sacrifices needed for success while maintaining my well-being in my relationships? How can we do that? There are ways. We have to have a plan. We have to be efficient. We have to have action goals and results-oriented goals, of course. But by doing what? As Dr. Ziegler used to say, how are we going to get there? What are you willing to sacrifice? Some people sacrifice everything so that I can stand here in a beautiful home and talk to you on an internet and a phone that somebody really smart created because they didn't have to go off and fight. And because they had the freedom to think about what they wanted to think about and build something with their hands to make the world a better place. What are you willing to sacrifice to make your mark or to get where you want to go? Or maybe you need to think about what you need to change in what you're sacrificing. Because maybe you're sacrificing things for the wrong reasons or the wrong things. But remember, you can do something in 10 minutes to stay on track. I'll do that in 10 minutes. And every single time you say yes to something, you are saying no to something else. That is so hit me in the face with, I need to make good choices. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. I hope you got to enjoy family and friends and good food. And I hope that you, like I, spent a little time thinking about all those that we honor today in such gratitude for the freedoms that we all have. Until next week, have a great week.